I think it is definitely an attack on masculinity. It's an attack on traditional femininity, and I think you can sum it all up by saying it's an attack on the family unit. The powers that be quite clearly understand that if you can break the family unit, you can control and rule whoever you want. The family unit is the most powerful threat to tyrants. Yeah, so I think when they're trying to attack masculinity, and you often hear toxic masculinity and all this, they're trying to break the natural order that God created. And then when they attack not femininity, like a female that wishes to stay home and mother her children, and they're attacking that because that is what forms a strong family, and a strong family is a threat to tyranny. So they're starting it in the classrooms as young as kindergarten.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Today, I have a very special guest, Josh Alexander. He's a student at St. Joseph Catholic High School in Renfrew, Ontario, Canada. And he was all over the news recently because he got a suspension at his school for his opposition to gender ideology. But also, he was later arrested by the Ontario Provincial Police. Thank you, Josh. Welcome to my channel.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
So, Josh, for those that don't know much about you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What grade did you go to, and any background information that will bring light to your case?
Yeah, sure. I'm a grade 11 student, and I'm currently enrolled in the Catholic high school in Canada.
You were saying that you also attended the public system in the past, right? And what happened there? How come you ended up in the public school system and later suspended?
Yeah, so last year during the Freedom Convoy, um, I and one of my buddies from the public high school, Monty Walker, decided to organize student walkouts in solidarity with the Freedom Convoy. We were sick of sitting on the sidelines while watching the COVID restrictions and the entire atmosphere of the education system destroy the morale and the mental health of our peers, and we decided to take some action and ended up spreading all the way across the country. I was suspended maybe 4 times for organizing those protests, and my principal called the cops on me approximately 4 times as well, and tried to make them stop. And I continued doing it. I finished up my year there, and after being disciplined so many times, I just decided to switch to the Catholic board, and that's where I'm at now.
So you've seen it all. You've been at both the public school system and the Catholic school system now, where you got suspended again. Now, when you were in the public school system, tell me about an example of a suspension. What got you suspended or in trouble at the school?
One time it was not wearing a mask. Other times it would have been attending school after being told I wasn't welcome because of my protest. There was multiple reasons. They just keep suspending me when I respectfully decline to abide by the draconian restrictions that were put upon our students.
You mentioned that as well, that you got in trouble for bringing a Canadian flag to school.
Yeah, I actually ended up being banned from bringing a Canadian flag. I had them on my pickup truck, and the windows got smashed. The police and the school refused to do anything about that, even though there's cameras on it. And they then tried to ban me from flying a Canadian flag, even though they fly pride flags in every classroom, and they even break our national flag code by flying a pride flag on the same pole as the Canadian flag, which is completely disrespectful and disgraceful.
Right.
But they've banned me, the son of a veteran, a Canadian citizen, from flying my country's flag.
Okay, so if you bring up an LGBT flag, a rainbow flag, no problem. Now, you bring a Canadian flag, you get suspended in
Yeah,
Canada.
basically. Yep.
That's insane. Um, that's really insane. Josh, you've mentioned that this whole process of indoctrination and ideology begins within the education system. What have you seen inside? You've been in both systems. What have you seen over the past few years that made you react this way?
Yeah, there's a very apparent attack on our generation, and they're using the education system to enact the majority of that, and it's quite obvious. The lack of common sense, the lack of critical thinking, all of these things that would have been utilized previously are now being thrown out the window. We don't even have a logic course anymore. That used to be like a priority. Now it doesn't even exist, and it's pretty sad to see that they're making such a forward attack on our youth.
Is there a lot of gender ideology, for example?
Yeah, definitely. There's gender ideology. There's encouragement of gender dysphoria. They tell us to explore ourselves. Um, I even had teachers in the Catholic board, two of them, telling the class that male breastfeeding is good. I
Okay,
called that pedophilia, but
say that again. Male breastfeeding,
breastfeeding.
like
Yep.
a male being able to breastfeed a child,
Yeah, they
a
were
baby.
saying like, yeah, they were saying that was good, and I interjected and I said no, that's
Hmm.
pedophilia. But yeah, they didn't take too kindly to that, and then I was that was actually one of the allegations against me in this recent case in my
Hmm.
Catholic board, which we'll get into more.
Okay. So a teacher can say something so illogical, unscientific, like as a man you can breastfeed a baby,
Yeah, and
right?
quite perverted.
And it's a total perversion because yes, I think you're right. It's a way to argue or try to rationalize a behavior, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, they don't get in trouble or something
Yeah,
happened to
no,
them,
and the administrators are aware of that as well, and they don't care.
right? And they were basically encouraging students to explore basically their
Yeah,
identities. Hmm.
yeah. Teachers, they say your biology that you're born with doesn't necessarily define who you are, and you can change your identity and be
Hmm.
whoever you want. But I mean, sure, you can
Hmm.
change your identity if you wish, and you can self-identify one way. That doesn't mean anybody else in our society
Hmm.
with head on their shoulders is going to accept that,
Hmm.
embrace that, or respect that. Um, I don't care if you want to change your identity. That's not my issue. That's between you and God, I suppose. But what I do have an issue with is staff members um, pushing it on young, impressionable minds, confusing youth, and quite frankly, ruining this entire generation.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
also have an issue with the individual student that does that if they're going to force it on other students. I have a level of sympathy for a student that is that confused, but at the same time, don't bring it into the female washroom or don't be using the wrong changing room. Just if you want to change your identity, leave it at that.
And now, Josh, one thing I've noticed looking at the education programs all over the world is that it seems that today they're not preparing young minds to face reality, to face the life that we'll have to basically live through in the future. There is not an effort to learn those things that are very human, characteristically human. Learning how to think, learning how to express yourself, learning how to socialize, learning how to think critically. You mentioned learning to have a powerful memory. Today, it seems that education is all about pushing an ideology. It's about pushing a certain worldview and deconstructing humanity, abolishing what it means to be a human, deconstructing masculinity. Right?
Mm.
Is that something that you've experienced in both the systems in Canada?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think it is definitely an attack on
Hmm.
masculinity. It's an
Hmm.
attack on traditional femininity, and
Hmm.
I think you can sum it all up by saying it's an attack on the family unit.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
the powers that be quite clearly understand that if you can break the family unit, you can control and rule whoever you want. The family unit is the most powerful threat to tyrants. So I think when they're trying to attack masculinity, and you often hear toxic masculinity and all this, they're trying to break the natural order that God created, and then when they attack not femininity, like a female that wishes to stay home and mother her children, and they're attacking that because that is what forms a strong family, and a strong family is a threat to tyranny. So they're starting it in the classrooms as young as kindergarten.
Well, actually, even scientifically, we know that there is a correlation between personal issues and the lack of a strong family, especially in those years that are fundamental for the growth of a child. And it's undeniable that not having a mother present, not having your own father present at home is going to make life much harder. It's a fact, right? What does your family say about this, Josh?
They're supportive of me. They're supportive of me. They're just allowing me to hire my lawyer and continue the fight with the education system.
Well, any other 16-year-old, I think I find it impressive in you is that most teenagers nowadays, they wouldn't have the courage to stand up against the system, and if they do and they get threatened, they get suspended, they get arrested by the police. That's it. They'll be like, hey, they call it even and retire. But you hire a lawyer, you kept fighting, you kept defying what you consider to be an illegitimate order to stay away from school. So you think there is freedom of speech in Canada? Can you truly and freely speak your mind?
I wish I could say that there was, but especially with some of the bills that have already passed and that they're attempting to pass right now, I can't say that we do have free speech. I mean, Bill C-4 was passed, and that's the law about conversion therapy. We have these online censorship bills coming. I myself was just arrested twice in 2 days, once for street preaching and the other one was at my school. But I was simply sharing my religious beliefs on a public sidewalk, and I was arrested for it just last week. So I can't say that we do have freedom of speech.
So what was the context of you being arrested by the police at school? What caused that?
Yeah, so it's an extended story. It all started about back in November. So when I went to the Catholic board, I switched from the public, went to the Catholic. I was informed by a few female students that male students were using the female washrooms, and the female students were obviously uncomfortable and disturbed by this. I mean, I don't blame them. So as a young man and as a Christian, I knew I had to say something about that. So I ended up, it ended up coming up in a class debate, and it also went to the office. A female student took it to the office as well. So everybody's well aware of the issue, and they all refused to take any action. So at that point, I decided to organize a protest outside my school, off school property. And 2 days leading up to the protest, my school suspended me indefinitely. And while I was gone, they went around class to class and intimidated and threatened the students and discouraged them all from walking out and joining me in protest. After that, they called my suspension to an end after 20 days and told me I could return if I basically agreed to throw out my religious beliefs. Like, they didn't want me to be able to express that. They didn't want me to speak to certain students. They didn't want me to... They permanently banned me from 2 of my classes and said I'd have to sit in a separate segregated room.
Which classes were those, Josh?
Religion and math.
Okay, so you as a Christian could not take religion?
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to take religion. And these are
math?
classes I'd already been in for like 2 months now.
Okay, and why math? So you were part of that class and they kicked you out, but why math? They wanted to
Um,
impose you that 2 + 2 is 5, or what?
well, so my math teacher was actually one of the most uh, avid leftists I'd seen in that school, but
Hmm.
I believe that the real reason was because there was a transgender student in that class,
Hmm.
apparently,
Hmm.
and they were uncomfortable by what I expressed,
Hmm.
and so
So they wanted to
they
create
just,
a safe space, and you were
yeah,
dangerous. Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm. Now, Josh, before I let you go on more, and before I forget, you organize a student walkout, like a strike, right?
yeah,
Now that's not something very uncommon nowadays. I've heard countless of times of students walking out because of climate change, right? A climate strike. We hear about Greta Thunberg organizing a student walkouts every Friday. I've seen that in Canada here, in many places. I've been driving around on a Friday at noon and see a lot of students on the streets. Like, what's going on here? Yes, it's a climate strike. And I don't remember anyone ever getting suspended for that. I don't remember Greta Thunberg being suspended for that. Greta, actually, she was here in Canada a few years ago. If you remember, she was campaigning for Justin Trudeau, going all over the country talking about climate change as the main issue. She also encouraged back then students to walk out of class. She didn't get extradited from Canada for causing some type of disorder in the school system. I don't even know of any student getting suspended. Now, you did the same thing for a different reason, the safety of women in women's bathrooms, obvious, and you got suspended.
yeah. Obviously, they weren't punished. They didn't attempt to silence them because what they had to say wasn't a threat to the mainstream narrative.
Hmm.
Nobody cared. I
Now,
don't like.
right, but if you did a walkout for something they care about, nothing would have
Yeah,
happened to you, right?
yeah. It's because what I have to say
Hmm.
was number one, influential amongst young people,
Right.
and number two, it was putting the radical ideology under the spotlight and kind of showing the world what was going on behind closed doors in those classrooms.
Hmm.
And they didn't take too kindly to that. They ended up kicking me out for the year. I'm not right now. I'm out for the year, and it was an unlawful exclusion.
Hmm.
It was discriminatory. It had no legal basis. So I decided to return on February 6th, and I talked with my lawyer. Um, and yeah, I was told to go to the office. I accompanied them to the office, and moments later, police came in and they told me I was trespassing. I told them no, I'm just a Christian kid going to my school. I
Hmm.
have freedom of expression. All I've done is express my religious beliefs in a classroom format, and so no, I'm not going to leave.
Hmm.
And yeah, they arrested me, charged me, read me my rights, put me in the back of a cruiser, and drove me away.
So you were literally arrested for
Yeah.
expressing belief that we can even say Catholic beliefs in a Catholic school.
Hmm.
That's how insane it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
Eh,
myself am not Catholic. I'm a
mhm.
Christian, but I have a very similar belief system, and I mean, we can all agree, Catholic or Christian,
Mhm.
um, there's only two genders,
Right.
and
Right. So the term gender ideology was actually coined by Pope Benedict, who recently passed away. Now, if the Pope was to go to St. Joseph Catholic School and warn the students about the dangers of gender ideology, he would have then got arrested by the Ontario Provincial Police, right?
never know.
This is how insane it is. Um, Josh, what happened with the rally? You organized a rally, you got kicked out of your school, got suspended for 20 days in November. Was it a success? Did it happen? Did it
Yeah,
take
it
place?
happened.
Hmm.
Yeah, it happened. I had a few members from the community come out. We were outnumbered by the counter protesters for sure.
Hmm.
There was like three different pride groups that came up. A workers' union, actually bussed people up to go protest
Oh
me.
wow! So they're afraid of you, a 16
Oh
year
yeah,
old.
for sure. Yeah. Um, but yeah, that was That's usually how it is. They usually
Mm-hmm.
have buses going in. I mean, we're usually outnumbered, but that doesn't really phase us. We do our
Mm-hmm.
thing. I mean, I remember one time, I believe it was earlier this month or last month, there was just four of us, my crew, Save Canada here. It's a youth-run organization. There was four of us outside of the library where a drag queen was reading to kids, and
Mm-hmm.
we were peacefully protesting there, and we were surrounded by over 200 counter
Mm-hmm.
protesters, and they would punch us and shove us and try to put us in traffic, and yeah, it was pretty wild.
Even though you're minors.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and they did some pretty disgusting things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's even worse knowing that we're minors, but even if we weren't, it was still pretty gross the things
Right.
they did that day.
And was the police there present?
Yep, the police didn't care.
They didn't care
Never
about
do.
them, but they care about you.
Yep. Yeah, they the next one I went to, they arrested me.
Mm-hmm.
They watched me. So yeah, on Wednesday it was last Wednesday. I was outside of the National Arts Center, which was putting on once again a drag queen reading to kids. I was there to demonstrate. Me and my crew again. We walked in, and I had a megaphone, and we were giving the gospel, and I was quoting some scripture, and we got surrounded and attacked again, pinned up against the wall. They stole some of our stuff, and then the police ended up pulling us out, throwing us into traffic, and then arresting my brother for being in traffic after they threw him there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to join my protesters again, the guys that were on my side, they just grabbed me and arrested me for disruption. And told me they told me if I didn't stop using the megaphone, which I was using to quote scripture, that I would be arrested. And I continued. I believe I was quoting John 3:16, and yeah, they arrested me and held me in a cop car for about 2 hours, and then gave me a provincial trespassing charge, and drove me off in the city and left me somewhere else.
That's insane. You also mentioned that you were arrested in the context of preaching. Was
Yeah,
that the same scenario
yeah,
there?
yeah. So I've only ever been arrested twice, and they were in a time span of 2 days. Once at my school, and then one day later at in Ottawa at the National Arts Center.
It's interesting that families all over Latin America, they get bombarded, literally bombarded by in social media, in on the internet about coming to Canada, right? Justin Trudeau promising a life in paradise, basically. Move to Canada, best place to raise a family, best place for your children to go to school. But then for us that live here, we see a different story, right? And I think that's important that people like you, your testimony comes out there so that families realize what's really going on in the education system, both the public and the Catholic system. A lot of families, Josh, they tell me, "Hey, we are pretty good, hardcore Christians. We're gonna teach our kids, to have principles." But then you go to a school that is designed to brainwash your kids, right? And let's say your child doesn't get brainwashed, a case like you, but then you get in trouble. So there is no way out.
Yeah, pretty much. I
Mm-hmm.
wish I could say that Canada is a good place to come to, but I mean the entire. It's not just Canada. I'm an American citizen as well, and I can see the entire world is collapsing under
Mm-hmm.
the ideological warfare that's being pushed on everybody, and it's time for us to speak up. Freedom taken for granted is always lost, and we need, as a Christian and just as a patriot, we need to speak up because a lot of people are saying I'm making quite the sacrifice, and that's really not the case. Because like when I was talking about my arrest there on Wednesday, I was arrested right in the shadow of the War Memorial. A image of to remember those who actually paid the ultimate price and
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice for our freedom that we now have allowed to be stolen by those who swore to defend it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's time that we speak up and gain it back.
How do you see your generation? Is there hope? Like, think about 100 years ago, kids your age used to go to war. Like, what's going on now?
I think our ancestors are rolling in their graves looking at us.
Mm-hmm.
it's it's disgusting how weak and docile our generation is. The level of degeneracy is astounding. When I just like you look at the video game addictions or the pornography addictions or just the dietary issues, you look at our entire society and our entire generation. It's broken, and I don't see a whole lot of hope. I know that young people naturally have rebellion, and I hope to be able to awake that righteous anger, because in our day and age right now, rebellion is just being a patriot or being a Christian, which is so opposite to what you would imagine it to be. But yeah, I hope that we'll be able to wake more youth and people will start turning things around, but I don't know at this point.
And hopefully you become an inspiration for many other teenagers across Canada as well, right? To stand up for to have convictions, to have a goal in life, to have an ideal, and obviously all of these ideologies are not leading us up to that, and that's why you see so much depression and anxiety, and it's sad. It's sad to see that so many lives are basically being wasted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Josh, are you alone in this, or you find support in other teenagers like you?
I do have a good crew close beside me.
Mm-hmm.
I've got, like I said, my organization, Safe Canada. We've got some solid young guys in there, and so yeah, I have guys around me, but there's not a whole lot of youth that are willing to speak up and voice their support for us. I know there are a lot of silent supporters, and they will tell me
Mm-hmm.
privately, but there's not a whole lot that want to go publicly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And show yes in public, um, and that really helps to know that you're not alone, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the important aspects of taking the courage and speaking up, right? When you read about how totalitarian dictatorships ended up taking control of a nation, be it North Korea, Cuba, China, people didn't speak up. They were afraid. And sometimes you wonder what would have happened if people spoke up, right? What would have
Mm-hmm.
happened if, when they had a chance, they would have confronted the ideology and say no, not to lies, right? If they had just told the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that you were quoting a passage from the Gospel of John, right? The truth will set you
Mm-hmm.
free, and freedom has to do with living the truth and living your convictions in a manner that is true to yourself and who you are as a human being, as a creature of God. For those that are Christian, right? Um, so I think it's very brave of you, Josh. Very courageous, and it gives me hope. It gives me hope in a time when you see so many people just giving in or being afraid of expressing their ideas, even expressing how irrational some of these things are.
Yeah, so if you guys would like to help out with my case and my cause, you can go to libertycoalitioncanada.com, and there you'll be able to find a petition as well as a donation stream, and hopefully you're able to help out in any way you can.
Yeah, perfect. So what I'll do is, for anybody watching this video, I'm gonna put that in the description of this video, and also I'll fix it in a comment. The first comment that you see is gonna be the petition. So please help Josh. I'll also include there his Twitter account so that we get him to have many more followers and spread the message. From anybody in the political world, have you received any type of support?
I've received support from Maxime Bernier in the People's
Mm-hmm.
Party of Canada, Derek Sloan in the Ontario Party, but nothing from the Conservative Party or the
Mm-hmm.
Liberals, or like the those who are elected currently are again hiding behind
Mm-hmm.
their political identity, and
Mm-hmm.
it's shameful. They ought to be ashamed of themselves, but
Right.
yeah.
Right. Right. Well, even if you look at the lockdowns and so many draconian impositions, Maxime Bernier was the only one from the beginning. Then, when others saw that it was politically convenient, they ended up jumping on the wagon, right? But it's sad. It's sad. I believe the Liberal Party of Canada is totally lost. Is probably the the reason why we are where we are.
Yeah.
But it's
And the
sad.
Conservative Party as
Hmm.
well. I mean,
Right.
it's not Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party, who's given me a shout out. He's been riding on the coattails of Maxime Bernier. Maxime Bernier has the
Hmm.
balls to say things, and he'll stand
Hmm.
up for what's right. And
Hmm.
then when he's like Pierre Poilievre's like a buck. When the doe crosses the road and he feels like it's safe, he'll run across the road, and
Hmm.
it's shameful.
Hmm.
Maxime Bernier has been a champion throughout the last couple of years, and it's no surprise to me that he has given me a shout out, and
Hmm.
Pierre Poilievre has not.
Hmm. Hmm. What do you think about Justin Trudeau?
Well, I don't. Where do I even start with that one?
Hmm.
Uh, a tyrant, an evil tyrant, but I don't know. We can only hope and pray that he finds God and is able to repent for all the wrong he has done. And I don't know. There's not much I can say for him.
Hmm. So, are you pro-life
Yeah,
supporter?
absolutely.
Hmm.
That's been a controversial one over the years. I've every time I announce that I believe life is sacred and abortion is murder,
Hmm.
I lose supporters every time. But I'm not going to stop. It's wrong, and I will speak out against it, and I always have and always will.
Hmm. Well, good for you. If we don't defend the lives of those that are innocent and born, then what moral grounds we have to say that anything is wrong?
Yeah. The
Okay.
only reason abortion is considered acceptable in our society is because um, the the ones that we are murdering are too innocent and unable to use their voice to speak up for against what's wrong. And
Hmm.
it's the only reason we kill them is because they don't say anything about it because they can't. So we have to be the voice for them.
It's sad. It's sad, but it's also a symptom of a society that has opened the way to self-destruction through ideologies that do not take into account the dignity and the value of humanity and the value of what it means to be a human. And and then you see all the craziness that comes along with those ideologies, right? Gender ideology, children being mutilated, children going through hormone therapies that are criminal, that are going to ruin their lives forever, and one day they'll regret and say, hey, why nobody stopped this, right?
Mhm.
I believe in 20, 25 years, Canadians will look back and say, what were we doing in 2020, 21, 22 that we didn't stop this craziness? Once we see the effects of that,
We
we need
didn't
to.
we didn't have
Mhm.
a identity crisis until it was fabricated and
Mhm.
politicized.
Right, right. And the school
Yeah,
system is part of that,
yeah,
obviously.
absolutely. Yeah,
Hmm.
they're pushing it pretty hard.
Have you thought about homeschooling?
I used to up
Hmm.
until grade seven, I believe I homeschooled. Right now, I currently can't homeschool because I'm enrolled in the Catholic board, but I haven't taken any options off the table. I don't really know what I'm going to do yet.
Otherwise, you might be suspended till till the end of your high school. Um,
Yeah, maybe.
so what happens now that you're suspended? So you're not allowed to go to class. Can you do online courses? How does it work? Are you gonna have to do the year all over again?
So I believe I've already lost my four credits for the last semester.
Hmm.
I was supposed to have four credits for this year, but then the principal told me in person that he's removed me from four of my classes, so I'm not really sure how that works.
Hmm.
They did in past offer online learning, but after the stance I took in the public board regarding online learning and lockdowns and
Hmm.
mask mandates and all this, I can't do it.
Hmm.
It's just not going to happen. It's completely inferior, and I'm not going to stand for that. So put me in class, or I'll continue to sue over religious discrimination.
Well, good for you. Keep up the good fight,
Thank you.
and thank you so much for coming over. Hopefully, your case will uh, make people aware of the dangers of gender ideology. This may be happening in Canada right now to you, but it could happen to anybody else. And what's happening in places like Canada can totally start happening in Mexico, in Chile, in Argentina, in any other place where gender ideology is is a in the public agenda, right? It's a political agenda, and these are the consequences of an ideology in the education system. So thank you, Josh, so much for coming today to my channel, and hopefully we'll stay in touch and uh, keep up the good work. Stay
Thank you.
courageous, stay firm, and don't be afraid to the powers of this world, right?
Yeah.
Because there is something greater waiting for you, and you just have to be faithful, uh, faithful to your commitments, to your faith, to your values, and this is what it means to be a man as well, right? A man of principles.
Yeah.
That's what it means to be a Christian. So congratulations, and thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless. Eh?
God bless you too.